Welcome, everybody, to the Pre-Flip presented by Prediction Esports. That's 2 E's and Pree on both of them. And I'm joined by Jamesbot. How you doing, James?
I'm doing fantastic, Gibbs. We saw a crazy regional championship. It was pretty entertaining, I would say. It was a good one. Since we don't have the world championship, we were entertained.
Seems like every regional championship entertains. And you know what else is entertaining, James? Audio podcast feeds. You know? We got them on iTunes.
Something like that.
We got them on Spotify. Go check them out. Just type prediction in your iTunes or Spotify, and you'll find it pretty quick. So you can get it there if you don't want to watch the video, because I try and get James's pretty face on, and we were about 1 minute before going live. We had his face ready, and then Discord decides to crash on me, basically. So, oh well. We don't get to see James's pretty face. It's only my pretty face this time, once again. So go there. Also support the show. Twitch. On twitch.tv/prediction esports. If you want to sub, feel free to throw a sub. It supports the show. It supports all the shows on the network. They do Dota, they do Smash, they do Teamfight Tactics, they do some business esports shows. It's good stuff, so go check it out. But on that, let's get the show started, James. And I'm sorry, James, but we got to start with the 50-50. Oh, the 50-50.
Did I win?
Oh, it's beautiful, James. It's beautiful.
I won?
No, I'm sorry, James. I'm sorry, James.
Wait, what?
It didn't happen, James. It didn't happen. You know?
I put my faith in the wrong people again. It was really close.
It was close.
It came.
So it came down to the Space Station G2 game. If Space Station would have won, I believe we would have tied. And if G2 won, then I win it all. And well, James, G2 won. I had a perfect 11-0 on G2's record this season. So that was pretty phenomenal. So
it shouldn't be allowed. I don't know how that's even possible.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But that means, James, that you're going to have to wear a shirt with my face on it. And I'm thinking in like 2 shows. I'll make sure that the webcam works or something, and maybe we'll do it there.
Yeah, you'll have to.
Yeah, and then
for the final show.
Yeah. Well, at least episode 8. And then we'll see what we do going on from there. Who knows? But James, now I got to pick a picture of my face to put on this shirt. And I'm really thinking that Gibbs creep one, you know, it's got to probably be that one.
I want the Hyper Gibbs one.
The Hyper Gibbs? Oh, okay. With the, like, blown out eyes?
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know, you don't get to pick, James. All right?
Well, I'm just saying I would wear that shirt out in public if I got that one.
And then we got to think of a one-liner to put below it. So if anyone has any ideas for what we should put below my face that'll be on James's body, let us know, because I got to think about it. Like, probably over this next week, I'll determine what I want to do with it, and then I will get it out to you, James, because it's going to be something beautiful. It's going to be great.
I can't wait.
All right. Well, James, we did really good in NA. Europe did not go our way at all. And
Europe was really surprising.
Yes. And today we are just going to talk about basically both regionals. We normally don't recap this much. We normally pick out one game as a must-see, but it's the end of the season. We're going to recap these regionals, and then we're going to talk about, you know, what's next for these teams. Do they stay the same rosters in Spring Series? Do they change rosters before? Do you think they change after? Yada, yada. So we'll talk about that throughout today. And let's just start with NA, then we'll work our way to the crazy European side. So NA, it didn't go that bad. Like, we kind of expected this for the most part. We had the one upset pick, and it was a minor upset, like in grand scheme of the thing, was Ghost Gaming versus Cloud9. And James, you had that correct, and then Ghost Gaming obviously went on to go to the semifinals. But the big shocker, the Sonics. We both did not predict them to make it to the semifinals, but neither of us expected 4-0-4-0 here.
Yeah, this was a big surprise for me. I thought that, especially with Shock being named MVP, that he would, you know, show up. I thought that Sonics would show up and at least make it competitive, if not against NRG, certainly against whoever made it out of the Cloud9 and Ghost series. But what we saw was just nothing. We saw nothing from them. They didn't manage to score more than a single goal in one of their games. So in game 1, or their first series against NRG, they scored 3 times. 3 times.
And then they bettered that
entire series
by scoring 2 goals versus Ghost the entire series.
Yes. It was tough to watch. It was tough to watch them lose so badly. And the Sonics, although they did get to this point, right? I think
they finished
the
5th.
Season overall is still a success, but they really, really got beat down when it came to the regional championship, and haven't really seen a beatdown like that in a while.
Yeah, it's really hard to say it's a success because obviously, like if the Sonics make a run late in the season and then finish fifth, everyone's like, that's massive success. But when you fall apart here at the end and then you get fifth, like after like having a shot at top two where you score 0 goals versus G2, and then you pull these off and it's like, oh, it just hurts. It just,
It hurts,
yeah.
but at the same time, for me, the regional championship, there's a lot more pressure, and these guys are going to be under pressure, and this is Shock's really first big moment where he's going to have to experience that. Obviously, he was at WSOE, but that to me was a little bit of a different situation than he is now.
Yeah, no one expected anything then.
The
Yeah.
RLCS, yeah. And I think they just had a bad day. They had a bad day, and it was obviously a really bad day, but you look at what they were able to accomplish over the regular season. I still think that this Sonics team is a team that you're going to have to respect, but I think it's going to be a much more difficult season for them next season. I don't expect to see them going 6-3 next season. I think they really performed well, and obviously they got a few Game 5 wins. You think about that series versus Ghost, that could have gone differently. Also, they had that Game 5 series against the Knights. So it was overall a good season for them, but yeah, this regional championship, they're going to want to forget it ever happened.
Yeah, that they reminded me a lot of Veloce or like an E United from last season, where like all their differentials, all their numbers on paper don't look great, but they clutch it out. And I was saying earlier that I think the Sonics are a better team than last season's E United.
Do you think the Sonics make a roster move?
That's the big question. I think if they don't qualify for Spring Series, they make a roster move.
You think that would be enough?
I think that would be enough.
Even
and I
after
honestly
finishing
yes, because
in the top 6.
Because if they don't qualify for that, then are they a top 8 team, or were they just riding these clutch performances out? We look at teams like a Veloce or an E United that didn't make roster moves after a season where it's like, were they actually top 4? And it was very surprising, and then they fall apart the following season. Maybe not so much Veloce, but like E United, where they didn't look good at all this season. Like I think the Sonics,
they were a world championship team, and now they cooled off.
So that's what the Sonics have to look at, because I think you could compare this team a lot to that squad. So I think if you don't qualify for Spring Series at this point, I think you might have to at least entertain the idea. Now, you don't have to necessarily make the roster move, but maybe try out some people or figure out who you would want to drop here or there. Like I think, honestly, Dapper and Shock, I think, are relatively safe. I think it comes down to Sathu, just because he didn't do as many wow moments, but who knows in the inner team, because it seems like they all got along, that they had a team house, they had a lot of fun on Twitter and all that. So who knows? Maybe that these guys are getting along extremely well and they want to give it one more go. Why not? But if they don't qualify for Spring Series, I think it's going to be hard to say why not, like at that point.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to qualify. We've seen this before. A lot of times teams coming out of the woodwork having just a fantastic day and qualifying. So I don't know really how the Spring Series is going to influence some of these teams when they're thinking about rosters, but I can see it happening to several teams in both regions. If they fail to qualify after having a tough season, I think we can expect some changes.
Speaking of weird seasons, let's talk about Cloud9 really quick. And we'll do the same thing. Do you think there's a roster move there? Because obviously Cloud9, they started off terrible, that they find their form, then they ran into a hot Ghost team. Like, I think, honestly, we both probably would have picked Cloud9 to beat the Sonics as well, if they made it that far. But they didn't look that great anyway versus Ghost, so that might have went differently in the regionals. Do you think Cloud9 finally makes that roster move?
Yeah. I'm certain of it. In fact, it's just this team, you can tell that they're ready for a move, and there was rumors last season that they wanted to make a move, which I think were pretty credible. So now the question is, what is that move going to look like? Do you who do you let go on that team? And who do you even bring in?
Yeah, because
it could be another situation too. And to me, like Cloud9 is still a team that a lot of people are going to want to play for.
Yeah.
So it's going to involve getting a high caliber player on the roster, which I think can a lot of times fall through. We already saw it with E United where you try to make a move, but it doesn't get approved by the orgs. So who knows what's going to happen and who knows what kind of players. I think after watching the regional championship, you look at a player like Atomic and you think he's a player that you can build a team around.
For sure, but would he leave Ghost for Cloud9 is the big question, right? It's like that's like I don't think that would happen. Like
Exactly.
yeah, so it's hard. It's hard to get
actually
anyone.
realistically get.
Yeah.
Becomes the question. So even if Cloud9 wants to make a move and it seems like a move is justified, it all comes down to, who's even available, who's out there on the market.
Yeah, and then you have to look at maybe some of these rival series guys that are making some noise, but it seems like a lot of these pros don't want to go that way. But then we see subs like Arju in Europe who, when they get their moment, they shine, right? And like I think Europe probably has more of those talented players down the line than NA, but who knows? Maybe these players just haven't seen that moment yet. But it would come down to extensive tryout periods, which is why I think for the spring series, I don't think Cloud9 makes a move then, because I think it would be very hard to get through the politics of NA to find a key player like that quickly. So I think they wouldn't make a move yet, and they would go into spring series and try and figure it out and play together maybe one last hurrah, and then they make a move when there's a longer break at some point.
Yeah,
So
and I can see teams doing either way, right? You
Yeah.
either do a test run with a new player for the spring series, or you make the move after. I think we're going to see the spring series be a catalyst for a lot of roster changes.
Speaking of, Pittsburgh Knights are not obviously like in these regionals, but I think it's good to talk about them here because we can talk about the promotion teams next week and the 10th place team, I guess. But Pittsburgh Knights, I think, is one of those teams that probably definitely makes a roster move. I'm not sure what they do yet with that roster.
I mean,
it feels like you have
there's
to.
only one decision on that team, and it's probably going to be either stay together or look for someone to replace AJ, or Reynolds gets an offer for somewhere else.
Yeah, like I wonder, like I think it'll be Reddle's choice. Like I don't think he'll get an option for another team. I don't know how that's going to work, but who knows? Maybe Reynolds is like, you know what? I want to try AJ one more time. Maybe throw out Gyro. I doubt it, but I think there's a small chance that happens. But I think you probably replace AJ and try and find someone else.
But again,
once again.
Gibbs, it comes down to like who's available.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Who's
I
there?
think, and maybe these guys on a team like the Knights who are a little more in tune to the up and comers because they're up and comers themselves. Maybe they'll make a move where they pick up somebody from the rival series.
It's possible.
To join their team if they're really confident in it. But if I for the Knights, I feel like you either you replace AJ or you look to make it work for another season.
Yeah.
Because they just replaced him very soon before the season began, so they didn't really get a lot they didn't really get a chance. So we'll also be keeping an eye on them to see how well they do in that spring series, because maybe they'll start figuring things out the more time that they have with AJ. But a lot of times you see teams have these honeymoon periods where they actually play better after they make a roster move. But we did not see that with the Knights.
Yeah. And I could see the Knights easily qualifying for that, being a top 4 team. Like, I think it's very possible. Like, without the other top 4, obviously, to battle against. And then it just comes down to, do they show up when they get there? And, yeah. So I think Spring Series probably, once again, I think it's too soon. Unless they already have someone in mind, which is possible. But who knows? Moving on, we'll go over to the semifinals. We had probably the match of the tournament, G2 versus NRG, a 4-3, very, very close matchup. That could have went either way, and James was really rooting for NRG because then he would have probably locked up that win here. But G2 found a way, and it seemed very close.
Oh my God, it seemed like NRG was going to do it. They destroyed G2 in the first 2 games. Right after they destroyed the Sonics, it seemed like we were going to see an NRG run.
Yep.
In the regional championship. Just never happened.
Yeah, but good for G2 to bounce back. That they were down 2-0, and Energy scored 4 goals and 3 goals, 2 shutouts as well versus G2. But they found a way back. Their offense began to get going. Scored 5 goals, 2 goals, 3 goals, 2 goals, 3 goals. Pretty good offense for G2 when they started getting going, and it was close, man. It was close, and it's very hard to take down Energy in the regional championship ever. So hats off to G2 for just that win alone.
And you know what's crazy, Gibbs, is literally only the big 3 have ever won in North America.
Yep.
Only the big 3 have won. The only outlier is season 1. There were 2 splits, and iBuyPower Cosmic won the first split, but Kings of Urban won the second, and they ended up going into the World Championship as the #1 seed. So I consider that a win for NRG because that was the eventual NRG roster pretty much.
Yeah, like by legacy, like either way, it's like that's still big 3, right? Because iBuy turned into G2, right? So it's like,
yep,
it's kind of weird like that. But like obviously they changed more of their roster when Kronovi switched to G2.
But when you think of the teams, it's crazy to think that throughout every season we've had so far, 9 seasons, only the big 3 have won it in NA.
And to be fair, Energy, 6 of them. G2, they just won 2. Cloud9's won 1. So Energy is so dominant. And then you go down Space Station versus Ghost. And I think that this is one of those trap series where like everyone's like, oh, Atomic is having the tournament of his life. Space Station might be in trouble. Space Station takes care of business. But this was not a pretty series. Like, they won those first 2 games, super close overtime games, where Ghost, they kind of gave up some gifts for goals throughout those games. And then they're down 2-0 versus Space Station. It's going to be very hard to battle back. Every single game was incredibly close until Game 5, where Space Station got the 3-0 win. Space Station looked decent in this series. That they obviously take down a hot Ghost squad. They, like, there wasn't too much to say about the series besides, all right, Ghost cooled down a bit. Space Station looked pretty good, but then obviously that changed going into the finals.
Yeah, and it wasn't really super surprising to me. I thought that I had faith in Space Station, and I knew they were gonna do well against Ghost. I was kind of surprised to see that they handled Ghost with such grace. 4-1. It was a pretty good scoreline considering how easily Ghost got through the Sonics and Cloud9. But I honestly, Gibbs, I was really, really disappointed in the final.
Oh, man.
With how Space Station played. I was really disappointed.
It was rough. And it wasn't even like G2 was on fire. Their offense was amazing. It wasn't really that. A lot of mistakes from Space Station. A lot of mistakes from AXB.
On the backboard, especially. Yeah. On the backboard where I mean, and it seemed like they kind of changed their play style, because normally AXB's not in the back all the time, but it seemed like there were so many times in the final where AXB was last back. So many times. Yep, and they only scored 2 goals in that entire series. G2 goes on to win a 4-0 sweep. And I thought, like, if G2 got through energy, I was like, all right, they're probably going to be on, that their offense is going to be clicking. And they did pretty well versus Space Station. And keep in mind, Space Station, the top defensive team. But again, mostly just weird defensive mistakes that were not really based on a ton of pressure from G2. It was more like, really? That's the touch that you get here? And then it turns into a goal. So a little bit surprising that Space Station fell apart that badly, because, again, they've been in high pressure before. Day 3 at the World Championship, made it to the top 4. So you would think it wouldn't come to that, but it definitely felt like there was pressure on them. Oh, it certainly did. They were not playing the way that that they could play. And I think it was one of those things where experience just got the better of them. Rizzo, he's won a big title before with E-League. They've made it to the grand finals. Even Chicago's got that grand finals experience of going deep on stage. And even though, and they have so much to prove too. You look at the amount of time that they put into the game, all of the players, how many hours they've been putting in. G2 had a point to prove this season. They were playing with a chip on their shoulder because they finished dead last in league play last season. Dead last after coming off a season where they made it to the grand finals. So they had a lot to prove, and they made a lot of changes. And I think the gaming house also really, really helped them. They all lived together. They played together in the same house with Jazzo as the coach, and it showed. These guys came into the finals hungry. They weren't messing around. And when they saw they had Space Station down, they didn't pull back any punches. They ended them. They dusted them. It was about as one-sided as a final could be.
And it really showed that hard work pays off, right? That whole team house, them all getting together, like even Jazzo there, like hard work definitely paid off for them here throughout the season. Unfortunately, obviously, that hard work will not go to a world championship, but hey, that's the least of our worries.
Well, what I was saying, Gibbs, is if Psyonix doesn't do a world championship makeup LAN, this would be a great LAN event to organize. Imagine being the person who gets together all the teams that would have played in the Season 9 World Championship and has a LAN.
So what are we going to get? Some private jets out to these guys? Oh, man. James, you there?
You're lagging a little bit. Yeah, I was lagging a little bit. Hello? Can you hear me?
We're back.
Sorry, that was courtesy of Comcast.
I think it might have been me, too. Who knows? I'm not sure what happened there. Hopefully we're still online, but I think we are. So let me know in chat.
But yeah, I think that it could just be as simple as, in Civic or, Red Bull Gaming or anybody organizing an event.
Yeah, but James, that might not happen until 2021, and at that point, we might have 2 more seasons. Yeah, you're probably that's the hard part.
It just kills me that we're not going to, there were so many good storylines coming into this season. I would have loved to see a Worlds. Obviously,
Of course.
we're doing the best with the situation. I still think what we were able to do was awesome. It just you want that event. You want
of
that
course.
opportunity to see those teams go and prove themselves.
And it's so unfortunate for like a team like Ghost, who's been like 5th or 6th, 4 straight seasons. They finally do it, and you're like, well, that's it. We lose the space station. It's over. It's like, that stinks. All right. So roster move talk between these 4 teams. Obviously, when you make it to top 4, it's probably unlikely that you make a roster move. Like, to me, I don't really see any of these guys making any moves because I think Ghost Gaming, they are a really solid team. Like sometimes, like if you come in the 6th spot and then surprise, then I'm like, well, you still might need to make a move like a team like E United from last season. But I don't think Ghost has to make a move here. Like I think they're solid. And obviously, like Energy, they're not making any moves. And G2 and Space Station, probably the same thing.
Yeah, and G2 certainly not going to make any moves. A lot of people speculated that they would last season.
Yeah.
But them staying together and deciding to double down, it paid off.
Squirrel Dude made a good point that the lower teams that we were talking about, that they might be forced to make a roster move because they could also get their best players poached, which is very possible. Teams like E United with Hoxer, where that there's rumors going on that he might have went to Cloud9.
But his stock fell a lot this season.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, but also like Cloud9. What if someone wants Squishy or something, and stuff like that. So that could happen. I doubt it because Cloud9 would probably want to keep Squishy there. But teams like Sonics, what if someone wants Shock? Something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't see, because I don't know if someone wanted Shock, who would take Shock? Like maybe Cloud9, but it's I don't know if that would actually happen. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, maybe Shock goes to the Knights in place of AJ.
That's possible, I guess. Yeah, but then you're like, well, we were better than the Knights, and do I think that Riddles and Gyro are better than my teammates? I would say they probably slightly
maybe
are.
Riddles
but
goes to the Sonics.
Sure. Maybe Riddles goes to the Sonics. That might be the move. All right. So that is NA in a nutshell. And I think it's going to be fun to see these guys battle out once again in the spring series. We'll have the top 4 at least, and then we'll see what happens out of all the other teams. We'll talk about the promotion tournament next week, so we will focus on those matchups because that's not this weekend. It's the following weekend, so we'll get into that in a little bit. But that's NA. NA went by the book for the most part. I think there was obviously some minor upsets. The Ghost versus Cloud9. I thought Ghost Cloud9 was going to be at least closer, but Ghost really came out hot. And then, of course, having G2 just dismantle Space Station is probably a huge surprise, and you would think that would be closer. But outside of that, I think these were pretty predictable results here or there. But
yeah, I wasn't super shocked by. The only thing I was really shocked by in North America was really about how one-sided some of these series were, particularly the Sonic series and the Space Station series, and how well, honestly, Rizzo played. Rizzo played the best Rocket League I've ever seen him play in his career this weekend.
He played great. Don't forget about JNaps. He played really well, too. Got a ton of assists throughout the tournament as well.
JNaps was playing great, but JNaps has done that before. Rizzo,
they won because of Rizzo.
Championship MVP from how well he played. So I think that was pretty special.
Yeah. Yeah, I was close, James. I was close. I was like, JNaps maybe? But you were hyping up Rizzo so much, I was like, James will hate me if I don't pick Rizzo. So I was like, I was
watching him a lot on player cam, and he really
he did great. He was great. I just didn't want Turtle to win something, that's all. All right, moving on. We're going to move over to the European playoff side. Again, we'll talk about how the teams did, who's going to make roster moves, yada, yada. First, we'll start with number 7, Team Singularity. Do you see any moves there?
That's a tough one.
That is hard, yeah.
I don't necessarily know. I think they all kind of played pretty well. I think they all played well enough. And I just don't think that Singularity is a team that you're going to be able to attract a lot of talent that's going to make you better.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
Who are you going to be able to get? Maybe you court Extra. I think Extra is a player that finished. He's essentially out of the RLCS. They got relegated to the rival series, but I think Extra is a player that's worthy of an RLCS spot, and he could go to a lot of places.
I agree there. Like I think Team Singularity, they started off awful. Like sure they got that Vitality win, but outside of that, they were getting dominated left and right. Then they finally picked it up towards the end. They obviously won the tournament run by Johnny Boy, which is a good sign. Like it is like a weekly, so teams don't take it as like crazy, but it's still a big win for them, for a team that was outside of the regional championship. But I think they got hot like 1 week too late. Because if they got hot 1 week earlier, maybe they sneak into the playoffs. Maybe they make that same run that Barca did. So I think it was just 1 week too late for them, and I think they probably will stay together. Like extra, like is that one player that could change around some of these European rosters. And also don't forget about Scrub Killa. He's probably going somewhere. I don't know if he would go to a Team Singularity. Yeah. So it's like, but if he has to,
I could not envision that.
But like if no one else picks him up, at that point it's like, well, I want to play RLCS.
People are going to be lining up for him. I
agree.
I think
I agree.
I think if Dignitas didn't win, maybe they would even be in there now. But now that they've won the European Championship, I don't think they make a move.
I don't know, man. I really don't know. Like I think it's still possible. I think it's still possible.
He might go to Dignitas.
Like I think Scrub has lost a bit of stock, obviously, and I think like a lot of people question his drive and practice and yada yada because that's what Vitality said. That's what it seems like Mousesports was beginning to say.
I can't imagine that Dignitas, after winning it, would want to really make a move.
Yeah, I don't think they will because they won it. But if they would have got beat by Vitality, I could see it. Unless they have a really bad spring series, that's like the only way. But,
that is a possibility. And I don't think Scrub's going to get picked up until after the spring series, but maybe we'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right. We'll get there in a second because there's one team I think he could go to. Let's start with Team Reciprocity, where they
drop.
That's the question, right? But first, we'll talk about what they did, and they didn't do a whole lot. They played Mousesports. They scored literally one goal, and that's because Speed scored it for them. That was the only goal they scored, and that was an own goal. There was a lot of posts, a lot of crossbars, kind of like classic Reciprocity back when they were PSG, just hitting a lot of posts. And I don't know about this team anymore. Like even Chaussette, like he had a couple good dribble moves, but then he never could finish. Never in that Mouse series.
This weekend was the worst I've ever seen Chaussette play.
And on the defensive side, that was where I was most surprised.
It was the worst I've ever seen him play. It was game 3 against Barcelona. It was in overtime, and a ball was coming at him. I was on player cam. The broadcast was not on. It was on director cam, so you couldn't really see what happened.
Yeah.
But I was on Chaussette's player cam the whole time, the whole overtime from kickoff. And it looked like his finger legitimately slipped off the joystick because he was going at the ball and he turns right and just lets the ball bounce into the net when he could have just boomed it. And it was on top of other mistakes that he had made. It was the worst that I've ever seen Chaussette play. It was really surprising.
And so this is the epitome of why I think they need to make a roster move. Because obviously Chaussette didn't have a good series. But the problem is, if Chaussette does not have a good series, this team's not going to win anything. They're literally not going to win anything. Like Ferrer and Fruity cannot carry this team. We've seen it before. Like they have some good moments here or there, but I don't think that they can carry this team. They need Chaussette to play well. So I think you need to bring in a star like Scrub Killa to this team at this point. Like if Scrub wants to go there.
If you do, then who are you dropping?
I would drop Ferrer and move him to coach. Because he already has the brains for it. He's basically their coach anyway right now by the comms. And I think his mechanical play is just slightly worse than the average RLCS player. And I think you move him out and you bring Scrub in and you see how that goes. Like I wouldn't mind them also replacing Fruity. Like I don't think it matters too much. Like that'll probably be more of like an internal debate of maybe Ferrer and Chaussette or buddy or yada yada. But I think either way, you bring in Scrub to this team, and this team is extremely dangerous once again.
Yeah, I think that could be a good move. I think when I'm looking at these teams and where I think Scrub Killa would be best, I see 3 real options. I think if I were Scrub Killa, I would love that spot on Dignitas. And really the only spot that's available from Dignitas is Yukio's spot. There's no way they're going to let Panda go. Astral is an incredible player. So unless Astral has some attitude issues that result in them wanting to drop him, But I still just don't see that happening because of how gifted Astral is. I think they would still want to work with him.
Yeah.
So that's the only spot. And the question is, do they actually do it? Because Yukio played well this season and they got the title. I think if you're Scrub, you want Dignitas. But if you can't get Dignitas, the other options are Reciprocity and Barca. I think Barca, they could even consider swapping out Devo for Scrub Killa.
I could see that. Like, I think you would rather Rec than Barca personally. I think Rec's the better team if you replace one of those guys and add in Scrub personally. But like, Vitality and Mouse are pretty good options. I don't know. Like, here's the problem for Scrub. He's starting to burn a lot of bridges at this point. He's lost Vitality. He's lost Mouse. He's going to go through all of the European teams by the end of this. But yeah, like, I think I would go Rec over Barca personally, but it's close. Like, it probably depends on.
I feel like Ronicky doesn't get as much credit as he deserves.
Ronicky did really good.
Ronicky was such an incredible player this season, hitting so many big shots. His offense. He's one of the best offensive players in Europe. He can carry series. And Flakes, Flakes did not do as much as Ronicky did this season. Flakes had some good moments, and obviously he got a lot of publicity from changing his car in every match. But to me, Ronicky is the star of that team. Devo was really the only one that was kind of quiet because he kind of would just sit back. But I think, you look at Devo and you look at Scrub. Scrub is going to be able to do everything that Devo does and more. So I think Barca could become a top team if they got Scrub.
Yeah, it's possible. Like, I think, I just think Rec would be slightly better, just slightly, because I thought Barca, like, honestly, for like the last half of the season was just not good. They couldn't get the ball out of their own half. Obviously, they changed that all around, which was the big surprise. A lot of big surprises here. Pretty much everything.
Whoever they drop, if you're Reciprocity, if you either decide to drop Farah or Fruity, either one of those guys is like coach material in my opinion. I also think Fruity has an excellent mind for the game, excellent attitude. So just the team environment, I think Scrub would benefit from going to a team Reciprocity, just from having Farah and or Fruity there to kind of be a good example for him.
So I think if Farah was the one who got replaced, I think he would go to coach. But I think if Fruity got replaced, I think he gets picked up by someone else. So that's what I think. Because I don't know if teams would want Farah because they don't really understand probably his leadership, because you can't see that obviously when you're just watching games. So I think it's hard to bring in a new leader, obviously. So I think Farah would just probably move to coach but Fruity, I think, like, he's gifted enough to be in the RLCS, obviously. So I think someone else might take a stab at him if that happened. But let's go over
a lot of times for roster moves, I'll just say this one last thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
One roster move can kick off a whole cascading event of roster moves. So a lot of times, whether or not we have the roster mania depends on one team deciding to make a crazy change.
All right. So let's talk Barca, Veloce, and then we'll go back up to Rec. This was very disappointing from Veloce as well. Like, I thought their offense turned back into like last season's of Veloce at times, where it's just like they're getting some really fluky goals, and like besides that, there wasn't, I don't know, like it didn't feel as powerful as I thought their like offense had a chance to be. And then obviously their defense crumbled, where Barca scored 3 or more goals in 4 of the games. In all 4 games that they won, their defense just fell apart.
Yeah, it was disappointing to say the least, especially because, I just talked about how I lost all faith in Barca, and then Barca walks all over him.
It was definitely weird. So what do you think happens with Veloce? Because now it's been 2 seasons.
I think if you're Veloce, you just stay. You just stay with what you got. They've had good success. Barca's not a bad team. Just sometimes they play bad. But when they play well, they're a very good team.
So it's so weird because I felt like it was karma for last season, where like Barca has that weird kickoff by Ronicky. Veloce wins that game 5 because of that kickoff. Now, obviously, that they could have still won it because it was a tie game at that point. That's the reason they were top 2 when Barca wasn't. And then Barca was a team that was supposed to make it. They looked so strong. They ran into a hot Dignitas, so they fell out. And Veloce was obviously top 2, so they made Worlds. Then this season, it was like, all right, if Veloce's that team, like I think ranked as high as probably number 3 in Europe, and Barca looks like crap. And then Barca comes out and wins it and gets that top 4 spot. Like, it just felt like those 2 roles completely reversed this season. And It's just weird. Like, I think Veloce's a weird team. I don't know a lot of players that probably would want to go to that team.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
It comes to like attracting talent, and reasons to change. And I think overall, Veloce again had a good season. They didn't.
Yeah.
They obviously had a stellar season last season, but they had another good season. And I really like what I saw from all players at times. Casio had some really good weeks, even getting Player of the Week. And Flame, his defense has always been quite good, and I think he plays a vital role on the team. And Freaky, you can't replace Freaky. To me, he's the backbone of that team. He's the linchpin that Veloce operates around. So I don't really see many changes happening for Veloce.
Yeah, it's weird because I liked them more this season than last season, and they made Worlds last season and even made top 6, which, to be fair, they were on an easier side of the bracket, but like I like them more this season, so it seems like they have grown as a team. I could see them staying together. And then you move over to Rec, where they get 4-0'd by Arju with Mouse, and they score 1 goal. Then they go on against Barca, where you're like, all right, maybe they can bounce back here, because I thought the end of the Barca Veloce series got a little sloppy, and I was like, all right, there's a chance for Rec to bounce back. Well, they scored 1 goal in the first 3 games, and then they finally put up some goals, but for 1 game, and then after that, they just lose. And Rec, extremely disappointing, because this whole season, like, they were ranked number 1 by the pros. They looked mediocre throughout the season. They had a couple quality wins here or there, but they didn't look like old Rec, and then obviously they fall apart in 2 big tournaments in a row. That's a major problem. So again, we already talked about their roster moves, so we'll see what goes there. But for Barca, they make top 4, but we just talked about it. I could see roster moves happening like on that squad because they did not have a great season, and I think there's a lot of European talent that could improve the squad. And even look at players like Arju. We were talking about this with Johnny Boy when we were just like in Discord, that there's so much talent like Arju that are just mechanically gifted players that can just probably be slotted in. It just comes down to, do you give them a chance? And maybe Spring Series is that chance where they try it. The hard part is you can't really say for Barca, be like, all right, Devo, we're just going to try this guy out for Spring Series and then go back to Devo. It's almost like if you try someone out, you're going to have to find someone new. It's going to be hard.
I think you can do stuff like that, because the only time that it becomes a risk is if you think that they'll have better options somewhere else.
Yeah, that's true.
It depends on the team. It depends on the situation. And I think it also depends on how you handle it. I think it's very reasonable for a team to want to try other options as long as you handle it correctly. You just don't go behind people's backs. That's what Bit missed, was that he was trying to do it behind people's backs, I think, is what he was doing. Is he had played with somebody without telling?
Maybe
what happened?
Like, at least in the Twit longer, it sounded like it was more like asked if he could try out and if they would be okay with it. So actually that one went well. But still, they still replaced him.
They still replaced him.
Yeah, it's hard.
That was a situation where one player was looking to move, and now the question would be, does Devo have better options? Would people offer Devo a spot? And if you look at other teams around here, I don't really see many other teams that would really want to offer Devo a spot that's on a better team. So true. Devo would have to opt to downgrade if he wants to leave. So I think depending on the team, that it is a reasonable thing to let other people try out, especially even for Mouse Sports. I think Spring Series, they can try it out with Arju and maybe offer him something after that, but I still would be holding tryouts and looking for the best third possible.
Yeah, I think the hard part is, like, look at the complexity situation. Like, obviously, you have to do it in a way where people don't get upset, but I think it's very hard, like, as a player to be like, oh, crap, they're trying out new players because they don't think I'm good enough, right? And it's hard to bring that morale back up. Like, say he does come back. We saw it with Complexity last season with Flakes, where that was a little bit more, turmoil there. But
and I think I remember. I think it was the Arsenal situation. I think Arsenal was trying out.
Oh, okay.
Back in the day. But I'd have to go back and look. I don't trust my words on that one.
Yeah, and speaking of not trusting, like, I don't trust that Barca had a great season. Sure, they finished top 4, obviously made Worlds, but they barely squeaked into the playoffs. They didn't look good for the remainder of the season, and then they had one good day. And it's like, now comes Spring Series, right? And I think, again, like, say you finish top 4, you probably don't make any moves before the Spring Series, and you try it one more time. It's the same with Arju, where we were talking a lot in Discord about, like, after the Rec Series, like, do you replace Arju or not? Or do you keep him on this team? And everyone on Discord, all the casters were just piling on James, because James is like, I would still try other people out. And you know what, James? I fully agree with you. And
Well, thank you, Gibbs.
So I said it a little bit there, but it was kind of fun to just hear them all pile on you. But like, you still got to try out other players to see what the options are, because again, it could have been just 2 great weeks. Now, Arju did prove a lot versus Dignitas. He looked like he fit for the RLCS, making incredible mechanical plays and reading the balls extremely well off the wall. So he looked like he belonged. But like, I give them Spring Series, and then you see how that goes. And if they bomb out a Spring Series, then I'm all right. I'm doing tryouts. But if they finish top 4 again, I think you keep Arju, because it's like, all right, you've proved it now for 3 different weeks, and it's a month apart and all that, or a month and a half apart. So like, it wasn't just a honeymoon phase. So I think then you keep him at that point. But I think it's still a possibility that you go into Spring Series, you play with the squad, and if they don't do well, you hold tryouts. And again, he could try out.
There's going to be a lot of pressure on him if you tell him that going into it. It's going to be a good practice run for a really high pressure situations.
That's
because
true.
if he knows he's playing for an RLCS spot and he crumbles under that pressure, then you know that that's what would have happened at the start of the next RLCS, when he's feeling the pressure of competition. So I think that Mouse, like, I totally agree with you. If they do well with Arju at the Spring Series, I would be comfortable for it. But really, when you're a pro team like this and you're any pro team, you have to say to yourself, like, you have to realize that these teams are trying to make the best roster possible, giving themselves the best chance to win as possible, because your career as an esports professional can end in a single season. It takes just one bad season for you to lose your status as pro, to get relegated out of the RLCS, and maybe you never get back in.
And that's why when Flight made the move, everyone's piling up on them, and I'm like, I completely understand this. Like, obviously, my heart says keep your roster. You just got promoted to the RLCS, but then my brain's like, you got promoted to the RLCS. You're considered a 9th or 10th place team at best. You need to improve. So I can completely see why teams like that, when they get promoted, they want to make moves. Like, if they can attract talent, obviously.
Yeah. Aeon also, he destroyed me. He beat me like 4 games in a row in matchmaking. He's pretty good, though.
Oh, so that's why he got the boot. Okay, all right. I see how it is.
No, that was just like a couple nights ago.
But that means he's close to James' rank, so maybe it was a good move. No, I can't.
No, it's season reset.
I know.
Don't be trying to trash him like that.
But like, I think the Spring Series, for the most part, like, obviously Dig gets that win over Mouse, closer than it should have been. Like, I don't think Dig played an exceptional series versus Mouse, and Mouse obviously played really well with Arju performing great. But then Dig really turned it on when they played Vitality, where that's where Astral came alive once again, making incredible plays where, like, every time he goes up for the ball, you're like, I literally have no idea what he's about to do.
Yeah, he's crazy. Him and Atomic, their ability to implement the flip reset into their game in ways that just make defenders miss is spectacular. I loved watching it. Atomic in North America had 2 insane flip reset shots. One of them was the best flip reset shot I've ever seen.
We saw 2 of the best goals probably in RLCS history from Atomic and then Astral when he went into the final versus Vitality. It was insane.
And it's the way the mastery they have over their car and the way that they can use flip resets is something that I think that is what's on the horizon for RLCS.
Oh yeah.
You see these 2 players doing it now, but eventually all of these players are going to be able to do these flip resets, and we're going to see flip resets like what they're doing be commonplace in games. Just like we were impressed by double taps back in the day, and now double taps are just a part of the game. Same for flip resets. So go back, look at the flip reset goals and the flip reset plays from Astral and Atomic. If you're wondering what the future of the RLCS is going to look like, it's going to look like that.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it was like 3 or 4 seasons ago when like players began to do flip resets, like outside of just like the 1 or 2. And I was like, all right, this season we're going to see a lot more of this, because if you have space, that just like opens up the door of so many more possibilities. And then obviously there wasn't that many gifted players that could pull them off or have the time to do it. And it took a few seasons. And now we're at that point where it's like you get players like that, where like Astral pulled off a double flip reset because he could. he was just in the air. He's like, I'm going to do one. Why not? Because now the defense is like, I don't know when to aerial to block this because I have no idea when he's going to stop.
Yeah, because it's like when somebody's dribbling, there's certain times you just can't go for the dribble because if you commit, they'll flick it over you.
Yep. And
It's
then
the same thing in the air with the flip resets. You know, if he keeps the ball close and he's going to get a flip reset before you go there, you just can't go, or you just have to guess.
And then the hardest part for Astral is when you see him and he's got wide open space and you're like, all right, he's going to go for another flip reset. Instead, he just drops it off for a pass. And that's what's so dangerous about him is when he just drops it off for a pass on the money to Yukio or Violent Panda, who were shooting both exceptionally well, hitting top corner shots.
Passer.
Yeah,
he's a great passer. You look at Panda's scoring. Panda scored so many goals this season because of how good Astral is at passing.
Yep. And we saw it a lot from Yukio. And obviously, there's a lot of talent in hitting those shots to the top corners or wherever you have to hit it. But it all begins with the pass, and Astral was hitting them time and time again. And that's why he's so dangerous, because we talk about players like that, and sometimes they get greedy, and all they'll do is always go for the shot, which is not always the best option. But players like Astral are just like, they look for the pass first, and if there is no pass, then they'll go for something crazy, and it's just wild to see. Vitality, they didn't play a bad series. They obviously clapped Barcelona. That wasn't a big surprise at all. I think most people thought, that was going to happen. Fairy Peak, another exceptional performance from him versus Barca. And then we go into the Dig Vitality series, and Vitality didn't play all that bad. Dig was just better. Like, this was clearly the two top teams in Europe battling out when they're playing at their best, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
And this was revenge. You think back to league play, and
Worlds
the series versus and Worlds and the series between Dig and Vitality. It was a crazy series for Dignitas in the regular season. They lost that game 3 overtime and proceeded to get reverse swept. So it was personal too. K-Dop and Panda, they've got a history as well, former teammates.
Panda must have been
he's
feeling great.
Playing against his 3-time former teammate. He wanted that win over K-Dop.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it was so funny because it's like, it was night and day from Dignitas when they played Mouse versus when they played Vitality. You could tell they wanted that Vitality one. It was, it was fun to watch. Dig just has to make sure they keep it that form, which I think towards the end of the season they started kind of getting a little bit worse. So we'll see how that goes into the spring series. They will be favorites, but I would say I would put Vitality and Dignitas even for money wise or whatever, for who's the favorite there, because I think Vitality was a bit more consistent throughout. But we'll see. We'll see who can keep up there. The last thing I want to talk about really, really quick is obviously no roster moves for Dig, no roster moves for Vitality. We kind of hit all the other ones with Scrub, with Mouse, and all that. Is this notion that people always say oh, clearly Astral was the MVP because of what he did in the playoffs. And I hate when people bring this up. And it doesn't matter, if I picked Astral or I picked Fairy Peak or I picked Shock on the other side, it's they were the best in league play.
Yeah,
that's completely different.
It's only league play.
And it's not necessarily...
last season, Bluey got MVP. He did nothing in the regional championship for Europe. It's the league play MVP. They're completely separate.
So it's also people think it has to be the best player, historically, or who you would bank on going into playoffs. But it's not. It's just someone who's all right, when he played in league play, he looked like the best, or at least he performed the best. But even last season with Bluey, I wasn't going to bank on Bluey over players like K-Dop or Scrub, stuff like that, as the best player of Europe. It's not I was rating him number 1 in the world. It's just he performed exceptionally well in their games in the RLCS. And even though Shock didn't do anything for his side of the thing, he definitely deserved that MVP on the side of for North America. Europe, me and James were the only ones to pick Fairy Peak. So, James, I was on that hill with you again. I'm agreeing with you a lot this season, and that's a problem. I think this podcast is doing something to us.
No, we're just, we have great minds.
Sure.
Great minds think alike.
But I thought it was funny to just have Fairy Peak. He outscored 3 different RLCS teams for the season by the end of it, which is fun. Obviously, he played a little bit more games because of the playoffs now, but it's just funny to see that. But Fairy Peak had a phenomenal season. He was me and James' MVP. Literally everyone else, I think, pretty much picked Astral.
Yeah, I think a lot of people picked Astralon Flash as well. He's a very
Sure,
flashy
which
player.
is fine. He's solid.
And I'm not. I don't think it's a bad pick. It just wasn't my pick.
Yep. Yeah, like I'm not like mad about that pick. Like I think it was going to be him or Ferry the entire way. And K-Dop is he's always there to screw out his teammates for MVPs. Yeah. He did it to Scrub 2 seasons ago. Now he's doing it here again. So just blame K-Dop. Because K-Dop wants the money instead, you know? So he's not going to allow his teammates to get more money than him. That's just not K-Dop's way. But that's going to do it for the pre-flip. Episode 6. We're on 6. Next week, we'll be talking the promotion tournament. Remember to go to twitch.tv/prediction esports. That's 2 E's in prediction. We do this every week, Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And then it'll be on my YouTube the following day. It'll be on audio podcast services, Spotify and iTunes, usually within a few hours after we do it live. So by Thursday morning, you should be able to find it if you prefer to do it that way. And just support prediction. You know, they're supporting us to put on this show. So if you have a Twitch Prime sub, feel free to throw it to them. And if not, just download the audio podcast because that helps them a lot more than just watching it here. So support them in any way you can because they support us. So why not you support them? But on that is it, James. We will be back next week. I'm probably going to rope in a guest that knows a lot about the Rival Series boys for this promotion tournament so we can talk about those teams a lot more next week.
Should we say congrats to the teams that made it into the RLCS?
Feel free.
You want me to?
Go for it. We were gonna probably talk about it next week.
Surprising to me. I mean, personally, I really would have loved to see Charlotte Phoenix get in.
Oh man! Again, please next week. Please don't do it to us.
I know. But congratulations to Omni Nation. That's Percy Jordan and Magic Bear. Omni Nation. They kind of flew under the radar. Everyone was talking about Stromboli all season and Charlotte Phoenix, and then Omni Nation comes in, swoops in, and locks in that #1 spot. I didn't get a chance to really check out the final week of league play, but I'm sure it was exciting. And
then on the other side, Team BDS surviving over RCD Espanyol. I believe they beat them in 5 games just 2 weeks prior. But these guys have been here for a while. Mark by 8, Clay X, and Monkey Moon.
And yeah, Monkey
Hats off
Moon.
To them.
He was so good when I was watching them when they were on. When I think he was on Baguette Squad as well before. But he was on ARG the last season, and I casted that season, and he was just so good. I guess he was on Xenomoon.
And this is the thing, man. The European talent, watch out. They're good. Espanyol had like a 20-game win streak before these last few weeks in Rival Series, and that's including against RLCS teams. Like they've been doing really well, so it's gonna be tough. Those promotion tournaments for sure.
Yeah, it's always fun though. Now that we have the auto relegation and auto promotion in, I think it really adds the next level of spiciness that we need.
It's going to be fun for sure. Me and James, I believe, are not working those, so you won't see our pretty faces on the webcams, I guess, for the RLCS for those things. But we're going to talk about it next week. So definitely tune in to that because that is the following weekend. And again, those tournaments are probably the highest pressure that you could possibly have. Like, outside of World Championship Grand Finals, that's probably the most pressure. Just because, like, it's literally your career is going to be made from that day. And that's if you make it in, obviously. So, it's extremely fun to watch just to see if anyone crumbles or if anyone really shines. Like last season even, like J-Naps, where he puts up 23 goals in 12 games. So, things like that are always fun to watch to see who surprises there. But that's going to do it, James. Any last words?
Everyone stay safe. Wash your hands. Wear a mask when you go out. Be responsible. Stay safe, everyone.
My kids are killing me, man. My kids are killing me. Like, Gibbs home every day. We're trying to figure out what to do with them. We're like, all right, we have all these things for school and stuff. We did yoga today from a YouTube video. That went okay. I don't know. I'm trying to keep this kid active.
I've just been playing virtual reality, man. Social distancing doesn't count when you're in the online virtual world.
And I'm trying. Like if I didn't have kids, I would have beat like every game in my backlog by now. But oh well, I love them to death, so it's okay. But that'll do it, guys, for this week. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.